Yeah?
Yeah.
My number one is Legend of Zelda Wind Waker on HD.
Of course it is. Yes, I knew you'd been playing this.
Yeah, on the Wii U. Well, there's not much really to say. It was a near masterpiece is it 2003 it came out, I think? It was a near masterpiece back then, and it still is. It's interesting seeing people react to the visual style, because, in making it this kind of cartoon brought to life, they've effectively rendered it timeless, because with this sort of HD lick of paint, it looks better than none of the character models have been changed, but the environment and I think it looks amazing. There's a sort of subsection of hardcore Zelda fans who are talking about something called blooming. Have you read about this?
I haven't read about it. I heard some people were saying something about it.
Yeah, there's a comparison video on Eurogamer, and there's like hundreds of comments underneath it. And apparently the way the light effects work, it kind of blooms out some of the detail or something. I didn't quite understand it. They showed these comparison videos, and if you read through the comments, it's all of these people saying this is awful, this is terrible, and every 5 or so you'll just have some person saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't believe how good it looks in HD, and that's the camp I'm in. It made my jaw drop non-stop. It looked like back when you were playing it in 2003 that you were interacting with a cartoon, and now it looks like that even more so, and it just feels timeless. The game is, it's tremendous. I reviewed it and I gave it 9 out of 10, and I said if you've never played this before, the 9 out of 10 is an insult, because there were stretches when I was playing it and I just thought that there's no way this isn't a 10 out of 10 game. It's Nintendo doing what they do better than anybody else. It is incredible. It's 10 all day. The only thing that sort of hurts it a little bit is that it's difficult when you go back to old games. I understand if you were to tinker with the fundamentals, especially in a game as vast as a Zelda game, it would be like pissing around with a house of cards. So there's changes I know it would have been a real pain for them to make. But some of the just a little bit archaic. These are problems that you get used to, so it's not like they're not completely detrimental to everything else. But for example, I understand. I really wanted kind of like a different control option. There are so many buttons on the Wii U Gamepad that you just kind of think, you still go to pick up something and you'll do a combat roll, because outside of combat, it's only one button. It's based around one button, and that's great for younger players especially. But when you're sitting there with this thing with all these buttons, you're just like, I'd like the option at least of a hardcore control style, but you do get used to that, so it's not a problem. There's still things like if you destroy all of the perishables that are essential for you to progress, you still have to go out of a room and then come back in, but that was in the game initially, so you can't help that. The other thing that is something that bothered me, because I don't use lock-on very much. When I'm in combat, I don't tend to use lock-on unless I have to.
Right.
So, for example, if you're sprinting around a boss and you press, you want to use you go into first person, the first person is always Link's perspective and not the camera's. So, So if you're running, you press it, you'll be looking sideways. Whereas you'd never see that in a game now. It would just default to the camera view to try and be a bit more helpful. So that takes some getting used to as well. They're just things that are just from a different era, and they feel a bit weird playing them now, but you do get used to them. The Wii U's thumbsticks are very sensitive, very sensitive. So when you're in first-person mode or you're conducting the wind, it's really, really quite difficult at first. It's moving around in first person, especially because there's no way to alter the sensitivity of the thumbsticks. So honestly, that's took me longer to get used to than anything else. And you can either use the touchscreen or you can use the thumbsticks for conducting the wind, but it demands such precision of you that in itself is, again, it's something that you do get used to, but it's really, really tough because of the sensitivity, and you can't change the sensitivity of either. So, but these things are, like I said, you get used to all of them, and what you're left with is an absolutely stunning game, a stunning Zelda game, but just a stunning video game. If you've never played it, it will be a contender for your game of the year. It's a joy to behold. Every time someone came round to my house in the past 3 weeks, I've stuck it on and said, you've got to see what this looks like. And apart from a couple of instances when there's sort of a couple of the bosses show up, there's occasional frame rate dips. They're very, very minor. It's incredible. And the gamepad implementation, you can play the whole thing on the gamepad if you want. And there's also Pro Controller support, so I played a bit with the Pro Controller. But it's hard to overestimate how brilliant it is. that when you're playing the game on the gamepad and you've got your itinerary and your map permanently on the screen and it moves all the time. So, but when you're going through some of the really tough temples, to be able to just look down and see exactly where you are and where you've got to go, rather than jumping in and out of menus constantly, and to change what you've got, what weapons you just drag and drop. It's so much better. It's no longer the stop-start game it was. It's visually again, it's just fucking stunning. When you see a thunderstorm on the horizon moving towards you, it's unbelievable. Honestly, this is the most jaw-dropping. It makes the quest for photorealism completely redundant. I mean, I know that works for driving games and shooters and stuff like that, but when you can create something that's just like so involving, just because of how completely bewitching it looks and unusual, and the game's just great. It was great back then. It's great now, and it looks amazing. And if you haven't played it, it's probably going to be your game of the year.